people that dialed in have commentary on workplace racism, feel free. I guess we'll start with our caller in the Bay Area, since you already said that you had something to share for workplace racism.
Can I be heard? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, super. Okay, workplace racism. Thank you. So after my client, I had the Berkeley client, that after my client transition, I took off of work for 3 weeks so I could regroup. And, of course, instantly after he passed, they had work for me to do like the next day. But I said no. And I ended up taking an assignment 3 weeks later. So my hours completely diminished to like maybe 17 hours. And I had 2 clients and 17 hours. The first client is an what are they calling those people? She identifies as being Italian, and then they have all those other things that they connect to, but she's Italian. And the second client was a Spanish male, 90-year-old war vet, because I had him through his care came through the veterans. So he was a veteran client. And his wife was Irish. So I take these clients on, so I literally tend to him, the Spanish male, I tend to him because he's the client. The Italian lady, I would do her twice a week. I would do the Spanish male 3 days a week. But I noticed that the Italian lady, she has this little snippy attitude. So she'll say stuff to me. And I'm very pleasant, so I try to be as pleasant and cordial. But I don't smile all the time because we're not taking pictures. But my voice is the same. So she hollered at me one day because, and mind you, these are fresh clients. So she hollered at me one day just after this. She needed the hall a particular way, and there's nothing in the hall but a rug. So I didn't understand. I was like, well, I cleaned the hall. Well, not when I asked you. I was just hollering and carrying on, so I just gave her this look. And I was like, oh, okay, no worries. So I had to cook for her. So she didn't like the other lady cooking, but now she knew she likes my cooking. So I'm cooking and stuff, and cook it like I asked you. Cook it like I asked you. She wants me to cook it as if I was in Italy. So I had to figure that out. And so it's okay, sure, I'll do that. I need you to get the dust off of the windowsill. The dust off the windowsill. Wow, I feel like I'm doing housekeeping. Okay, don't you have grandchildren? So it's, yeah, but they don't, yeah. So get the fingerprints off the window. So what did it for me was when she asked me to call my name. It's like, yes, I need you to get olive oil and put it on a rag, and I need you to go to the door and shine the front door on the outside. So I repeated that, and then I forgot I was on the phone. So I was like, oh, so you want me to go outside? So I repeated what I just told you, and she's, yes. So I go outside with the rag, and I get the olive oil, and I go out that front door. And she asked me, doesn't it look much better now? Sure it does. So then she's talking, and, you know, when you're dealing with Caucasians, sometimes they always want to share a story of how they knew some non-black people that went through stuff. They didn't do anything, but they knew non-black people that went through stuff, and they had empathy for them. Yes, I'm listening. So I 2-week noticed her, and I didn't want to deal with that anymore. And, the killer was, she had a chair. She needed me to paint her chair. So she said, well, you can have one of your sons paint my chair. I said, paint your chair? What's on your chair? Well, it doesn't look wood. I need oak paint over it, a dark brown oak paint over it. You can have one of your sons do it. Because, of course, being a black woman, my sons don't have anything to do to commit crime. So just give them a constructive chore. So I thought, oh, okay. So I ended up taking the chair home, painting it, because I knew I'm going to quit. So I brought it back, and she was just happy, and so of course I quit. But the second client, the Italian and Spanish unit, so I catered to the Spanish male because that's my job. And his Italian wife always had, his Irish wife always had chores for me. So she's like, oh, okay, when you finish with Manuel, I need you to do this. Oh, okay, well, when you finish, that's enough with Manuel. I need you to do this. But he's my client, not her. So she said, okay, we're going to go do laundry, and we're going to hang the clothes. And you're not going to help me with this basket? Well, how do you normally do laundry? Help me with the basket. What do you do when I'm not here? And I said, I'll help you. We can hold it together. Girl, just give me this basket. We don't need to hold it. This basket. So I take the basket. Now I'm hanging clothes, and so she has these undies. They're her undies. And she's like, well, you can hang the panties and socks. So I flipped through those panties and got those socks and clicked them up. And she's looking for a sock because she's not going to hang the panties. I'm hanging the panties. But I'm not hanging the panties. You hanging your own panties. So she's, you didn't do that? Oh, okay. So we go to Costco. It's a warehouse store. We go to Costco, and she tells me that, mind you, the man that I take care of is 90 years old. So she's like, oh, man, we're not going to push the basket. I said, the 90-year-old man is going to push the Costco cart in Costco? Yeah, he likes pushing the basket. So, of course, he's 90 years old, so he's slow. So when he sees Spanish people, he's very excited. So he's like, ¿Cómo está? Whatever he's saying, and he's so excited to see someone like him. So she walked to him and said, you don't have to speak to everybody. You just, every time you see Spanish people, you're just speaking to them. You don't have to speak to everybody. And so now the Spanish people are looking like, who's this? And they're looking at her, so every time we go down each aisle, the Spanish people are just looking at her with this stern look. So when we get to the house thereafter, she asked me to dust the plants. And so she's like, oh, so you don't have anything to do? No, I have something to do. Well, you get to go dust the plants. Dust the plants? What plants? And she, the plants. I said, oh, who does plants? What plants? And then I have this oil you can spray on them. So I had to quit because I don't understand that kind of work. I'm a home health aide. I'm not Dana's housekeeping. So I ended up quitting but it taught me something, that no matter who it is, Caucasians or people that identify as being white, whichever part of the world they want to connect with, they always treat us as servants. So I told the company to take me off the schedule, and I haven't been back. And I'm helping my black friend with her mobile nail salon. So I'll see what happens with that. And yeah, I took an economic hit, but I'll be okay. I don't have to deal with that kind of abuse. No. So that's my workplace racism, and thank you for listening.
Wow. Black self-respect on display. Black self-respect on display. That great summary at the end, though, in terms of individuals who classify themselves as white worldwide, how they see black people. We are the help, regardless of what your occupation is, what your level of education is, or what your actual assignment is here. Get a shovel and come dust the plants and all this other you're supposed to be a slave, basically. Come here and, any other nonsense that you're not even supposed to be doing, you're a Negro. You do whatever I tell you to do. That's your role worldwide as a black person. System of white supremacy. And I think having a code in terms of how you're going to deal when she's doing the yelling and other tacky behavior, I think that's important, too, because we've been talking about that this week. I think that comes up almost every time that we do workplace racism, when white people are yelling or coming at you practicing racism, how you respond so that you are not surprised, so that you do not have an emotional response. You already have your code in terms of being disciplined and how you're going to respond. I think that's outstanding as well in terms of just minimal response. And then if you determine, hey, this is not even something that I'm willing to invest any further time and energy, regardless of the paycheck, I'm going to go ahead and take myself off the schedule and discontinue working in this environment. Outstanding for people who have the flexibility and ability to make that happen. Folks had questions that they wanted to ask our mom in the Bay Area. Feel free. If no questions or observations about what we heard thus far, if you have your own issues or triumphs, even workplace racism, feel free to share.
May I be heard?
If you could give us a little more volume, please.
May I be heard? Is that better?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I was the one that asked the first question, so I would like to thank everyone for their input. My story of workplace racism is I had actually called in last week, but I'm going to tell a different story. I work at a medical school / hospital in Brooklyn, New York, and we have a cafeteria in the school/medical center hospital. And I drink tea. I often drink tea. I usually purchase like a cup of hot water from the cafeteria, but that can add up. And so there is an office that one of my colleagues had showed me that usually is open, and they have a water cooler where the hot water output, that usually works. It produces really hot water. So I'm accustomed to going into that office and no one being there. So one day I went in. This was about a month ago. One day I had went into the office. There was this white guy there. So he said to me, "Oh, you're here for some hot water?" I said, "Yes." So I said, "I usually get it from the cafeteria." So he says, "Oh, okay. So how often do you drink? Tea?" I said, "Well, I drink it. Maybe I'll have a cup twice a day." So he said, "How much does it cost to get it from the cafeteria?" I said, "About 60 cents." So he says, "Okay, so let's do the math on that. So you spend like $1.20 per day, times that by, times that by a month." And he said, "Well, by the time you come in here and you get your 2 cups of water, I'll leave the office door for you open." He was like, "You'll be ready to have enough money to go out to pay for a date with me." And I kind of chuckled it off. I was just like, okay. So he said, "I'm going to just leave the door open. So anytime you want to come in and you want to get hot water, you can come in the office and you get hot water." Exactly. So about a month after this encounter, I work in the president's office. So after a month after this encounter, I was in the office. He comes into the office. Now, he doesn't know that I work in that particular office. And as soon as you enter into the office, you're going to see me because I'm at the front desk. So he asked about a specific meeting. He said, "Oh, well, is the meeting going to be taking place in the president's conference room, which is in the back of the office?" So he's like, "I don't know where this meeting is located. Would you happen to know?" And he was talking to the other assistant. He was asking both of us, but the other assistant answered. And so I asked him, I said, "Oh, are you talking about such and such meeting?" And he mumbles under his breath, "What the hell are you talking about?" So I was like, oh, I guess I'm assuming he's upset with me because I don't want to date you. I don't want to date a white man. And if I had to date a white man, God forbid, it wouldn't be you. So he was very upset about that, and I just thought that it was very funny, and I thought it was a great example of not just workplace racism, but racism in general. I guess he probably sees me as a black female, like, oh, what are your options? I'm probably the best option out there, even if I'm this whatever-looking white man. How much options do black women have? So it goes back to even what the previous caller was talking about, that people see us as black people. Not only do they see us as perpetual slaves, but they just see us as, what options do you have as black women? We know that black men aren't available, so I'm a white man and you should just jump at the chance to date me no matter what I look like. So just wanted to share that one.
Awesome. Great counter-racist response. I think we had listeners who had mentioned before they were curious about how frequently that sort of thing, these sexual propositions, veiled though they may be, how often that sort of thing pops up on the job, and thinking that was probably more prevalent because they felt like they weren't hearing it enough. But glad we got that in. Sounds like you handle things well. And again, even with that, I have said consistently, particularly if you start a new job or if they have any training around sexual harassment, since they got the Clarence Thomas, Anita Hill documentary on HBO. It premiered within the last 24 hours or so, or this weekend. Confirmation, I think it's called. They have anything like that on your job? Ask those sort of questions in terms of, how should we respond? What's the procedure? Just even if you just asking the question, I think that in and of itself alerts the racists that are present, and even non-white people who might be present, that you are serious. I am not here for people to talk to me any kind of way. I have black self-respect, and I want to know up front, this is what to do. This is the procedure. If people are making those type of remarks or touching or hugging, anything like that, this is the procedure. This is what to do. These are the people to talk to. I always encourage, I think that's great, particularly when you're starting a job, so that you can make that clear from the beginning in terms of what is going to be acceptable in terms of how you are treated. But sounds like you did a great job in navigating that situation. And what I've said, too, about whites, how they are constantly watching him, even monitoring you coming in to get your water and scheming and plotting around this. Just the tackiness abounds. If folks had comments or questions they wanted to ask for the female caller who just shared, thank you for getting that in. If you had comments or questions about what you just heard from her, or if you had your own incidents of workplace racism you wanted to share.
Yeah, I had a quick comment because I think that would have been a prime time for, especially with a female having so much power inside of the workplace, just to make a comment like, you're making me feel very uncomfortable. Just putting that in his ear from the back. Like, I'm quite sure his response to that would have been, I don't want you to go, because, no one wants to get in that type of trouble. So, just like what you just said, Gus. And, I don't know if, I wonder if how they would respond if a black female was to say, I don't date white men. I wonder how that would have played out.
Yeah, usually my response to him when I see him is if I'm walking through the hall and I happen to see him, I just kind of turn the other way. I just ignore him. So I don't speak to him. The only time I speak to him is when I entered into his office, and I had not been back into his office. Once he made that proposition to me, I had not been back into his office. I just go and I pay for my hot water, or I actually have found someplace else where I can get my hot water whenever I want my tea. But he has come into the office before, prior to him making that remark under his breath. He has come into the office, and usually what I do is I let the other assistant handle him. I don't really communicate with him. Usually what I would do is if I have to go to the copy machine, or if I have to go to the restroom, or if I'm working at my computer, I just turn around and I continue to work at my computer. But I really don't, I'm not going to say I don't acknowledge him, because I acknowledge everybody that comes into the office, but I really try to not have any conversation with him, and I let someone else handle the situation.
Yeah, you see, what I'm saying is, like, a woman has so much power in the workplace. I just can't imagine a white female working with a white female, and she feels uncomfortable enough to have someone else deal with me every time I come into the office. Like, I think they would nip it in the bud. Like, they'll go right to HR. Listen, every time this guy comes around, I treat you out, and one day I ask you out for a date. Ever since then, you've been acting real strange. I think that sometimes, we might need to go the extra mile like they do.
I think white women, they have a lot of power in the workplace. I totally agree. But these are just adding white women to be able, and I've seen that myself, where anything like that, man, they can get the president, the CEO, vice president, or whomever else is in charge of that company to come in and stop that immediately. If that means somebody needs to be fired or written up, or, whatever sanctions are going to take place, they can get all that going immediately. I'm not sure if non-white, particularly black females, I don't know if they would have that same type of power. In fact, I would say that they probably do not have that same sort of power in the workplace setting. But still, I think, at least in terms of what you said earlier about at least saying, I don't feel comfortable with that sort of remark in the workplace, I suspect that might work to minimize those sort of comments. Certainly, your workplace environment better, but I would encourage everyone just on self-respect. I think that is a good route to go. I think that can be a quality suggestion in terms of just making that comment to let it know, hey, that we are in a workplace environment. I'm not comfortable with those sort of comments. I'm not into any sort of dating, fraternizing in that sort of way with colleagues, coworkers, just to make that very clear, very explicit the first time that it comes up, just so that it doesn't happen again. It's been my experience that white people tend to make comments. They chat about us frequently. Wow, she said, I made some sort of overture or what have you, and she said that she didn't feel comfortable and blah, 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 and all this other thing. I know some people might be concerned about losing your job, but yeah, I would just encourage that sentence that Thomas said about I do not feel comfortable in the workplace with those sort of remarks.
I wanted to say that situation, I think, Gus, you've talked about this, and a couple other non-white visitors to the cows have talked about this. Because of the sexual dynamic between white and black people from the time we've encountered them, white people have this thing where they feel that they have ownership over black bodies and they can do what they want when they want. And that, to me, was kind of a prime example of that. And a couple of visitors to the cows always talk about the fact that when you see any black person, male or female, in a relationship with a white person, it is the white person that does the choosing. And it seems that he was upset because he did the choosing and he did not get chosen in return. And under quote-unquote normal circumstances in the system of white supremacy, he would be a prime catch regardless of what he looks like, simply because he's white. So that was so offensive to him that he would take that opportunity to be so disrespectful to her when she was trying to assist him with finding the meeting. So I just wanted to chime in with that because it just reminds me of a couple of episodes I've listened to in the archives where those sorts of things were discussed, and this seems to be a prime example of that within the workplace. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody, I guess anybody, but I was particularly thinking of black females. Anybody here, do you think if you said that in a workplace, like if a white man made some sort of comment like that to you, suggesting, let's go out for a date or whatever, something where it was clear that they were trying to ask you out, and you said, hey, I don't feel comfortable with that sort of thing in the workplace, does anybody feel like their job would be in jeopardy?
Yes, I do. I feel like if you, because that's kind of a slap in their face, because like it's been stated on the program before, white men have a particular, they feel that they own the black woman. And then, too, they figure that our self-esteem is so low because they always make us out to be all these negative things. And since no other race actually shows a lot of interest in us except for the black man, when they come at us, we should jump for it. So if I go in and say, well, I felt uncomfortable because Stephen, he just kind of approached me sexually and I didn't understand. They're going to talk amongst each other, and then Stephen's going to turn it around, and then I'm going to have to be very careful on my P's and Q's because right now I'm at risk for losing my job because I just made him out to be some sexual predator.
Logical. Anybody else? You feel like you... Go ahead.
I apologize. Well, right now, my current status, I'm not even like a permanent employee. I have a temp status that kind of makes everything a little, I don't know. So as far as that guy was concerned, I just knew that the best way for me to address it is to never go back into that office because even if I say that I feel uncomfortable, going back into the office is going to make me think. And I also thought, too, I know that I don't have much interaction with this person. I know that I'm not going to see this person often, so that is what I didn't decide to proceed with going into finding out what the sexual harassment, whatever information they have on sexual harassment, because I just thought about my status as a temp employee, and I just knew that I wasn't going to have any interactions with this man.
Very logical. Yeah, and that's black females, non-white females on the whole, but you do not have the same sort of power as a white woman. in the workplace. I even remember the situation with Nafissatou Diallo a few years back, Dominic Strauss-Kahn. Folks remember? I don't think that situation would have gone down the same at all if she had been a white female, even in her position as a member of the custodial staff at the hotel where all that happened at in New York. So that's certainly a valid concern. That's why I said you know your workplace situation better than anybody else in terms of the best way to try to handle these situations. And even if you don't go to human resources, that sort of thing, just letting the person who makes that sort of comment, they're making some sort of sexual overture or what have you, just telling them that you don't feel comfortable with that sort of remark. But I can certainly see how it could go the same route where they end up going to tell somebody and, she tried lying and saying that you accused them of being a rapist or something like that and accusing you of things that you didn't say. I can certainly see how that could play out as well.
Well, every job that I've ever started, you have signed paperwork that it tells you the conduct of that company and what you can and can't say, and that's usually nothing. Nothing of the sexual gesture, not asking no one out, not sending you a pretty today, none of that is acceptable for a male in the workplace. And they had to sign paperwork when they took that job. Every job that's a legal job, some of them even make you watch a video showing you all the things that would be a part of the misconduct for men to do to a female. And I know race always plays into it, but I would think if they didn't follow the rules that they put out there, then you would definitely have a lawsuit as well. Even though you are a temp. Now, I just started a temp job, and on Wednesday I started the job, and I had to sign 3 papers about sexual misconduct that's not acceptable for the company I'm in. And I just wondered, did you have to fill any paperwork out when you started that job that dealt with sexual harassment? Because I think that you definitely would have a valid case. I'm not saying you should do it, just saying.
Well, I really appreciate all of the comments and suggestions, and I will have to take a look at the paperwork as far as any policies that they have regarding that. So I appreciate all of the suggestions. Thank you.
For sure. I've had to do that for a lot of jobs as well, where they have seminars and workshops. Sometimes they'll do it at the beginning of the job, and then they'll make you do it again at some time on the job. If you've been there a year or 5 years or whatever the case, they'll make everybody come in and get what they call a refresher course on sexual harassment and appropriate comments in the workplace or inappropriate comments. And then this is what you're supposed to do in terms of this is the protocol for how we handle these sort of things on the job if somebody's saying something to you that you don't feel comfortable and that sort of thing. But again, as I said before, I seriously doubt that a black person, black female, is going to have the same sort of protections under the system of white supremacy. That's why I say certainly you know your workplace environment better in terms of the best way to handle that sort of thing that's not going to make more problems for you. I was also thinking in the middle of all this, too, that you could just say, I don't date employees, or I don't date people that I work with. Just leave it at that. I think that one might also get you out of that sort of situation without it being something that becomes a greater problem. That's just quick, flat, doesn't bring up race at all. I don't date colleagues. I don't date people that I work with, and keep going about your business.
I had a quick question for the caller as well. Did you actually write down the incident as far as the detail? Because he was practicing racism even in his approach by saying you could save your $1.20 a day, until you save up your nickels to come and take me out on a date. Like, that was crazy. I just wanted to know if you wrote that down and like you have a record of it, so in case anything does pop up, you have the time and date of the incident and everything, and you can relay the details. And then that subsequent contact where he was so rude and disrespectful to you, like any contact that you've had to have with him where it has been inappropriate or could be potentially interpreted as inappropriate based on the context of that initial attempt to take you out on a date. Thank you.
You know what? I listen to the cows all the time, and I know there's a suggestion to write down these things, and I have been a little lax with it, so my response to that would be no. I did not write down either one of these comments. or situations. I didn't write down the comment, and I did not write down the first situation.
Just a suggestion. I don't know if there was anything significant that might have happened on the job on either of those given days, but if there was anything significant that might have come down in email where you remember, hey, I got this email regarding this particular thing, try and go back to that, whatever associated email or whatever associated event on the job, and it should give you a time frame for the date that happened, and then you can, I guess, kind of make an educated guess for the time frame. But you definitely want to record it, just because his approach was just ridiculously white supremacist and just so tacky, trifling, and terroristic to tell someone save your $1.20 because you spend 60 cents a day on hot water, 60 cents purchase on hot water to save up your nickels to take his sorry behind, his trashy reptilian behind out on a date. So if there's any significant event that took place on that day where you can maybe track it via email or something, it'll give you the date that it happened, and then just kind of juxtapose that with an estimated, educated guess on the time frame that it happened. That might help, but I definitely would say record those situations if you can. Even now, just record it anyway, and even if you're not able to get the exact date, just approximate it, but just record it as much as you can remember. If there's anything significant you can associate with that day, you might be able to backtrack to get the exact date, and then just do an estimated guess on the time. Thank you.
Once again, thank you. And actually, for the second event where he mumbles underneath his breath, what the hell are you talking about? That one would be a lot easier for me to track down the date and time because, as you mentioned, something significant happened. He asked about a specific meeting, and I have a calendar where it's been jotted down that particular meeting happened and around the time. So that I can definitely easily identify. The first incident where he had mentioned about saving up my coins to take him on a date, that one is going to be a little bit more difficult because it happened over a month ago.
Maybe you might have a receipt for when you first started buying water again. So maybe check your purse. If you might have kept an old dated receipt, you might have had a receipt because I remember you said that's when you started going back to either buying coffee or whatever. Something like that. It might help you track down the date or just even estimate that time, make an educated guess on that. But write down as much detail as possible because it might come in handy in case they try to do something slick to you moving down the road. Thank you.
Hey, my last thing is, man, that was such a great idea. Write it down and keep for not for probably you because it's already happened, but for other people who listening and it didn't happen to them yet. When it does, write it down and tell one of your coworkers that you're cool with what happened and put that in the report too. So you also have a witness trail. Also with that paper trail, when this comes down to an investigation, or let's just say they let you go one day. I mean, I've been getting harassed since this date. Look, I got a whole log. You got all these witnesses' names in those reports. They're going to go back and they're going to confirm, yeah, she did say that happened to her. And, that could help a woman out, definitely on the workforce.
Lady, did you have comments you were going to get in?
Yes, may I be heard?
If you could give us a bit more volume, that would be helpful.
Okay, I hope that's better. Sorry I chimed in late. I was not going to make a comment. I just was going to listen in, but I heard the caller's story, and just wanting to say we have no power in regards to that. I'm not giving a suggestion to the caller or anything like that, but I had an incident a few years back on a job where the harassment from this white male who was about 20 years older than me had gotten so bad to where he had showed me his genitalia just right there on the job. I reported it. I wrote my little email. Before we even got to the email stage, white woman is the boss, and became very angry and upset with me when I brought this up. She told me, I don't believe it. I believe you had something going on with him. I believe you have been initiating something with this white male. Right off the bat, didn't even finish going over the months of harassment from this male and how over the top he had become, especially when he found out I was with child on the job. He just went after me even more. So so I did that. I went on my maternity leave right before I went, and then I submitted this paperwork. This male was given a raise and given full-time status before I could come back on my 6 weeks. I had heard about some jobs were going to be cut. Of course, my job was the one that was cut. I was laid off and let go of. So there was no protection from the job. There was, it was very nasty, and I had no power. So I think that only applies to white women, and the white women came to fire me. So that pretty much was the comment that I wanted to make about that.
I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry to hear about that. My God. Wow. And I appreciate you sharing your story.
For sure. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that's about what I thought. It would be white women who would have those sort of protection. And I'm not surprised that the white women, it was last night they had my BFF forever, Amy Goodman. She was on Bill Maher's show, my two favorite whites in the whole entire universe. And they were talking about the documentary on Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas. And they were saying that they think things would be so much, because this happened in the 90s, and they were saying that they think things would be different now because when the hearings took place, I think there were only like two, I'm forgetting them. I think it was like less than five female senators who were present and participating in the hearings. And they said they're like 20 now, so they think it would be different. And if it was like 50, if it was half, since there are 100, if it was half female senators, that it would be way better, and there would have been way more support for Anita Hill. And the crowd went wild. And I was just like, I don't think that is the case, because I've seen no evidence that white women are that supportive of black females when these sort of things happen. The Daniel Holtzclaw trial, that might be one illustration. I did not see white women rallying to support those victims in Oklahoma. But yeah, I'm super glad we got that in, and that's why I said I totally recognize it's totally logical to have that sort of concern, that if you say, hey, I'm not comfortable with that sort of thing in the workplace, white people might not believe you, and they might even come to fire you, as what Lady said happened, even though it might have been a little bit of time. It wasn't an immediate thing, but within the next 2-3 weeks up, we no longer need for your services. Here's your resignation slip, and peace out. I totally could understand that sort of thing happening. That's why I said you kind of got to make the best decision about what you're willing to tolerate, what you can do financially. It's a terrible predicament that they have us in, and just trying to make the best decisions to deal with things.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I think the last female caller was very, very accurate. Based on, of course, I'm not a black female, but from being on a job for 27 and a half years and observing, and also from logic standpoint, I can see where what she was saying is accurate as far as HR and all the rest of that. It's almost null and void on what could take place as far as something positive on the black female's side. I do have a story. I don't recommend that it is to be repeated, but a friend of mine who also is a firefighter, his wife was an enforcement official. She's retired. She's been retired since, but back early in her career as a school enforcement official, she had a harassment episode, and what her husband did, who was we're very close, he had us to show up with him on her lunch break, and we walked into the police office. It was about somewhere around 8 to 10 of us, and you have to imagine the picture that I'm trying to paint. I just made a metaphor. Sorry about that. It was about 8 to 10 athletic-looking black males that went into this police station in the lobby area, and basically wasn't saying anything, just standing around in there while he was with his wife during the lunch break. And ironically, she didn't have any more harassment problems out of whoever that white male employee was at the time. She ended up retiring on the administrative staff, some like a rank of captain or something like that from the school police. But as I mentioned, I wouldn't recommend anybody to do something like that. But nevertheless, I'm in agreement with the last female caller.
Right on. We did our 3. We will be here tomorrow morning for the early broadcast, 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, Global Sunday Talk on Racism. Folks chiming in from around the world to share their thoughts on racism, but definitely be interested in picking the discussion up in terms of just strategies, because I think that's important in terms for how you best strategies in terms for dealing with sexual harassment in the workplace, because I think that's super important. I'm sure there's tons of people that are dealing with that sort of thing, even if it doesn't get as horrendous as what Lady described, the last female caller, where they're actually showing genitalia in the workplace. Just the comments and those sort of things having to do with that.
Unmuted.
Just where it gets to that point where you have to deal with, excuse me, those sort of comments and asking you out, just any unnecessary commentary that you have to deal with in the workplace to get more strategies on how to successfully neutralize that without creating extra problems. That's kind of the other thing to keep in mind, where you can successfully deal with that situation and then it doesn't become something where whites use that to then attack you and find out a way to mess you up on your job or change your schedule around and just create new problems for you as a result of trying to deal with that. There should be some strategies out that are more helpful, but definitely make sure you're not thinking that you're going to have the same protection as a white woman on the job, because you are not. Regardless of who you are, workplace situation, black females, black males, whomever, you're just not going to have the same sort of protection, security. You're not going to have the cavalry coming to save you on the job situation when you have those sort of things to deal with. So be good to get some strategies to help out. Thanks for all the folks for sharing, participating, suggestions, commentary. Super helpful, super informative. And I'm sure it's helpful for people listening in who maybe have not dealt with that sort of thing, just to kind of know the type of things, unfortunately, that you might have to deal with so that you're not surprised. I think that's one of the most important things, too, not being stunned when these type of things happen, because I think a lot of times that, too, can get us in a situation where we just don't expect it. We're surprised and we're thinking that this is not a system of racism, that this is Bob, this is Ted, that these folks are cool, they're nice, they're not going to do anything to us. And then they come in and turn the terrorism on, and we're befuddled about what to do, how to respond. I think just knowing, this is the environment that we're in, then, just be prepared on a regular basis, even if you've been on the job for a long period of time and there has been no significant misbehavior directed at you. Still, you should be alert, be prepared, because this is the system that we're in. With that, again, we'll be here tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Global Sunday Talk on Racism. Looking forward to hearing from some of our listeners in different parts of the world to get their views on what's been transpiring globally. Racism, white supremacy. Chime in if you are able early on your Sunday. We also should be here Monday. We should have attempted counter-racist parents giving some information on how their parenting styles have changed as they have gotten more information about racism, how things changed from when they were more confused and how they dealt with their children then, and then as they got more information about racism, how it impacted the way that they relate to their children, positive and negative. It's not necessarily all wonderful once you get information about racism, and I think that's important for folks who have black children and are trying the best they can to share this information with their offspring. That being said, we will wrap up. I will again encourage sobriety would be best under conditions of white supremacy. You do not want to make racist job easier by being under the influence, particularly if you're out and about, if you're in a vehicle, driver, passenger, even a pedestrian. You do not want to make Daniel Holtzclaw, Darren Wilson, you don't want to make their job easier by being intoxicated. You want to be able to make the best possible decisions when you are lucid, clear thinking to keep yourself as safe as possible, you and any folks that you might be responsible for when you're out and about. Buckle up. Let's try to do everything that we can to minimize contact with enforcement officers. With that, Creator, it has been time. Help us remain patient with other black people, victims of white supremacy. Help us remain patient with ourselves. Remind us to demonstrate the highest levels of black self-respect at all times, in all places, each and every time we are in contact with another black person. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cows signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. Problem. You're a victim. Man, I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my conditioning. Mm-hmm. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.